All right, folks, welcome to the podcast. We've got Christa on with us today. She is a member of DTC Speakeasies. She's been a member of Toastmasters for roughly 2.5 years, and she frequently does writing and editing in her role in corporate communications. Today, Christa is going to be talking to us about the grammarian role. To get started, Christa, what would you say is most important to you about the grammarian role?
I think the most important part is really the focus on precision, but also not on overthinking it. So we in Toastmasters work on the precision of gestures, the precision of how we use our voice. So the grammarian role plays that same role, but just for language and how people use language to draw people in or potentially distract them during a speech.
Could you give me an example of a way people distract from their message with their language?
So this isn't specific to Toastmasters, but I think it's a good example of how things can go downhill quickly or be a distraction from the point of being there. So several years ago, I was at a luncheon and a governor, not the current one, was speaking to really give it some additional cachet. And his role was to say, I'm thrilled to be here. This is a great organization. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you to these specific supporters, right? That was all his role was to do. And he had talking points written out to that effect. But when he got to the podium, somehow we got from thank you, I'm thrilled to be here, to what the mayor's wife would sing in the shower in about a minute flat. And it was so bizarre. And this was not the first time that had happened. There had been write-ups about how similar situations had come up at other introductions and speeches that he was given. So for me, that was such a distraction from what the point of his being there was. Obviously, it was very memorable, but not really in the way that he probably prefers.
It's funny to me that you say that. Because a lot of times the folks that you'd expect are just professional, just play it to the hilt, and they just never do this kind of stuff, surprise you not infrequently with where they can end up. There's somebody I've been watching for years for information about business building and internet marketing and things like that. And I like his material, or I wouldn't have been watching him for years. And it was amusing to me that I saw a training he was giving recently. And most of the time, when I'm counting crutch words for people, it's just for an awareness thing. In Toastmasters, I rarely hear anybody use crutch words so much that I felt it really took away from their message. It's just, could it be a little more polished? But he used crutch words so many times in this little, and I can't remember, I think it was just and and he was just couldn't get to the thing he was saying, and then and it was so many times in that little, like, maybe 1 minute or a minute and a half period of time, that it just completely took me out of the state I was in for watching the training. But I still watch the guy. It's not like it just killed the moment. So it's funny to me on two levels. On one, it's funny to me that this person who's this professional, and at least if I'm correct, makes as much money as he does doing what he does, could have that kind of moment. But on the other hand, it still didn't kill it for me. If that had been the first time I'd seen him, maybe it would have then, but it definitely didn't. I'm guessing the governor didn't get instantly fired for his faux pas in your situation.
No, but I will say I've noticed him using talking points after that. So hopefully he's learned his lesson about when it is okay to go off script and the danger, but also that it's dangerous territory.
To stick to the cards. To stick to the cards.
Exactly. Remember why you're here.
All right. Is there anything particular you would say? I suppose it's more obvious, well, I guess we might have just stick to the cards, but I guess it's a little more obvious on how you draw people into your message. But is there anything particular you'd point out for that?
I I think it's really just the storytelling. For me, I think of almost all communications as a form of storytelling. A lot of times there's a purpose behind it. Are we informing? Are we convincing? Are we educating? But we as humans love stories. That's why we focus so much on personal anecdotes in Toastmasters. And so I think it's really just painting that picture or finding ways to use alliteration or rhymes. I'm a
Mm.
bit of a collector of fun words and phrases. So for me, the grammarian role is just, it's like I was made for it.
Nice. I agree completely. Story, I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
story is the thing. I mean, all those
Mm-hmm.
you want to teach and all the other points of it, there's got to be a story there. And so there's a piece of entertainment, I think, and all of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it might not be entertainment like comedy or a show like we typically think of it. It can be something that connects you. And a story does that. A good story kind of
Mm-hmm.
brings me a little bit into your experience into your life and what are you dealing with, and allows me to compare and contrast and connect based off, well, we've all had challenges. Mine might not be exactly the same as yours, but you tell me about a challenge you've had and how you dealt with it or faced it or overcome it, and now we've got commonality, whether again it's the exact same thing or not. And to that point, what got you so interested in language, where you got this notion about being precise with language?
So I grew up in a house that just really valued stories and language. My mom was a reading teacher. And so at any given time in the back of our car, I'd be stuck in the back with the smelly soccer players after driving the carpool. And we would all open up our books and to read A Camel Went Walking, or If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, or whatever she was working with her kids on. There were just always books and stories around us. And she actually, after she retired, started doing storytelling for fun around different school districts or different community groups. And so for me, that sense of story has just always been there. And I've always gravitated toward reading and writing and story.
Nice. Is it kind of a family connection feel, or is it just like a passion for the story itself?
I think it's a passion and appreciation for the story itself and what it takes to get to that point of storytelling, whether that's written or the practice and precision to really deliver a message with with precision.
Is there something you notice when you're hearing someone else tell stories that really grabs you? A particular element or a particular style of storytelling that does that for you?
Painting the word pictures for me, making it visual and drawing me in. I'm a very auditory person. That's how I function. But what that person is describing, if someone can really paint that picture. So, for instance, recently in a meeting, one of my uh, DTC Speakeasies colleagues was giving a speech, and he was talking about a product or software or some kind of launch when he was working in an outside office. They'd been working about 16-hour days. He was standing up at a file cabinet at his computer to stay awake. And he talked about being hunched over that computer. And I don't know what it was about the word hunched and how he painted that picture, but suddenly that empty office that I was picturing became very gothic. It was suddenly straight out of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or the Igor character in Frankenstein. And I could see suddenly that office building became very gothic and it had just a totally different feel. I don't know if other people had that experience, but like that one word just transported me. I mean, but he had to really paint that picture up to that point for that one word to transform my experience.
That's interesting because I mean, when you got into it, I started thinking of it in that terms, and I was thinking kind of like a gargoyle almost when you said hunched and gothic, and so that kind of came.
Absolutely.
But when you first said
Absolutely.
it, the thing that got me was standing up at the computer to stay awake. I've done that a lot of times. I've done that a lot.
Right, right. It's very relatable. Very relatable.
It's very interesting, the different elements of the story that might pull different people in. That's cool.
Right. And the disparity between standing over a computer and the vision or picture of being of that gothic image, right? They're so disparate, but somehow they went together really well in that situation.
Um, what's your favorite thing about Toastmasters?
I really love our group and the people. We're a really diverse group. We have people of different ages, people who have been in the group in Toastmasters for 10 plus years. We have people who have been in for just a few months, different ages, different careers. For me, it's that opportunity to interact with all of those different folks and also get feedback from them, because the world is a diverse place. And so if I were in a situation where I were only talking to people who did stuff like I did, that's not as valuable.
When you're getting the feedback from the different points of view from different members of your club or different members of Toastmasters, have you got a feeling of getting a synthesis from the different points of view? And could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, of course, I think there's a synthesis, usually some common themes. I think like anytime you're getting feedback, sometimes it's slow down and someone else wants you to speed up, or right. Sometimes it's exactly opposite, because we're humans and we're looking and listening for different things. So that of course happens. But in general, again, going back to that feeling of precision and understanding what each of us is working on is helpful. If we know this person, I'm really working on connecting with the audience, or somebody else is working on gestures, that's helpful to know as a participant, but also I think to know as a speaker going in, whether or not you share that with the club, going in and understanding this is what I'm working on, this is my goal, and then seeing how does the feedback reflect that goal.
Well, Christa, thank you very much for your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
I think a reminder of why each of us joined Toastmasters. So for me, it was extemporaneous speaking, needing to speak more during meetings, presenting to leadership. But what I found is that there are a lot of other opportunities to develop leadership or to develop new skills that I didn't really think about when I joined Toastmasters. I think all of us can, especially this time of year, think about reassessing and why are we here and what are our goals, and looking at how Toastmasters can fulfill those even beyond what we first anticipated when we joined.
Absolutely. And with New Year's coming up, this is the time of year, reassess, get cleared, start moving
right
forward.
We're all working on those professional development goals at work. So as we're working through those with our leadership, what skills do we need to learn, and how can we work with Toastmasters within that model to make those things happen?
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for your time, Christa. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
Absolutely.